Collapse file number 13. Subject: Société Générale, 144 years old, one of the banks that built modern France. Exposure: 50 billion euros, carried by one junior trader on a middle-class salary. Cause of death: the bank didn't die. 4.9 billion euros did in 3 days. This is the collapse files. January 2008. The world's markets fall off a cliff, and the American Federal Reserve makes its biggest emergency move in a generation. What almost nobody knows: one French bank is secretly dumping 50 billion euros into that falling market because of one man. This is the file of the biggest trading loss in banking history. The man who caused it was not a genius nobody watched. He was the watcher. Jérôme Kerviel was born in Pont-l'Abbé, a small town in Brittany. Mother a hairdresser, father a metalwork teacher. In French banking, that matters. The elite desks are staffed from the grandes écoles of Paris, and Kerviel came from a provincial university. In 2000, he joined Société Générale, not as a trader in the middle office, the control room, the people who checked the traders. For 5 years, Kerviel processed and verified other people's trades. He learned when the controls ran, which trades triggered a confirmation call, which ones never got checked at all. The bank was teaching him its blind spots, one by one. In 2005, he got what he wanted: a seat on the Delta One desk, the junior job. Officially, his work was arbitrage, tiny, hedged, boring profits. His trading limit was 125 million euros. He would eventually bet 400 times that. The first secret bet came in the summer of 2005, a short position against the insurer Allianz. Then, on the 7th of July, terrorists bombed London. Markets dropped. Kerviel's forbidden bet made €500,000. His manager noticed, and the profits stayed on the books. Remember that. Every collapse in this archive has a moment where the system catches the sin and keeps the winnings. The strangest line in this file is the next one. By the end of 2007, Kerviel was not hiding losses, he was hiding profits. 2 years of secret, unhedged, colossal bets through the first tremors of the subprime crisis had made him €1.4 billion. Hidden, arguably the most profitable trader in the bank, and no one knew he existed. He declared 55 million of it and asked for a bonus of 600,000. He was willing to bury more than €1 billion of profit just to keep his seat at the table. The desk booked the declared profits happily. Winners don't get audited. File number 2 called this disease account 8888. A bank that celebrates the profit never questions the source. In the first days of January 2008, Kerviel reversed the bet. Long, this time, all in. The market kept falling. Here is how you hide 50 billion euros. Every real trade he made, he paired with a fake one, an offsetting trade with a forged counterparty, so the books always showed zero risk. The fakes were timed. Confirmation checks came days after booking, so each fake was cancelled just before its check and replaced with a fresh one. He was dancing to a rhythm only a former control officer could hear. When questions came, he answered with forged emails from counterparties that did not exist. He took 4 days of holiday in all of 2007. In banking, that is itself an alarm. The oldest rule in fraud detection: the man who never leaves his desk is hiding something in it. In November 2007, the Frankfurt Derivatives Exchange Eurex sent Société Générale 2 formal letters. One asked why a single junior trader had bought 6,000 DAX futures contracts in 2 hours, over €1 billion of exposure. Kerviel supplied explanations. Compliance accepted them, in the bank's own later words, quote, without verification, in contradiction to Eurex's assertions. By the 18th of January 2008, his position stood at €49.9 billion of European index futures. Société Générale's entire market value was around 35 billion. One 31-year-old was carrying more risk than his bank was worth. Exhibit K, the bank's own internal investigation, codename Mission Green, published in May 2008. It counts the alarms that rang on Jérôme Kerviel: 75 wrong counterparties, impossible settlement dates, profits that refused to reconcile, 75 alerts, each one explained away, non-escalated. File number 1 in this archive was Night Capital, 97 unread emails. File 13, 75 ignored alarms. The technology changes. The silence is identical. France's banking regulator later fined Société Générale €4 million for, quote, grave deficiencies in its internal controls. 4 million, less than 1,000th of what those deficiencies were about to cost. Friday, the 18th of January, 2008. A routine check finally lands on a trade that cannot be explained away. A colossal position supposedly offset with a small German bank called Bader. Someone at last does the one thing nobody had done in 2 years. They call the counterparty. Bader has never heard of the trade. Through that weekend, Kerviel is summoned and questioned for hours. The fake trades peel apart, one by one. By Sunday night, the executives of Société Générale understand there is no hedge. There is only a naked €50 billion bet, and the market is in freefall. Chairman Daniel Bouton is told the bank may not survive the week. He informs the governor of the Bank of France and almost no one else. The bank makes a brutal decision: sell everything in secret before the market learns what it is holding. One senior trader, Maxime Khan, is put in a room and handed the position, reportedly without being told where it came from. His instructions were simple: sell all of it, tell no one, never exceed a tenth of the market's volume, fast enough to survive, slow enough to stay invisible. Monday, the 21st of January. Asian and European markets are already collapsing on American recession fears, one of the worst single days since 2001. Into that inferno, Khan begins to sell, a man defusing a bomb inside a building that is already on fire. That night, the American Federal Reserve delivers the emergency move. This file opened with a cut of 3/4 of a point, panic medicine on a scale not seen in decades. Answering a global sell-off it cannot fully explain. To this day, economists argue over how much of that week's crash was Société Générale itself. €50 billion of secret selling pressed into 3 days. The honest answer: nobody can fully separate the fire from the fuel. By Wednesday evening, the position is gone. The unwind has cost €6.4 billion. Set against Kerviel's hidden winnings, the net loss is €4.9 billion, the largest trading loss by a single trader in banking history. On the 24th of January, the bank tells the world and announces an emergency capital raise of €5.5 billion to survive it. The press needs a villain and gets a gift: a lone rogue trader from Brittany. The bank calls him a fraudster. The tabloids do the rest. But something strange happens. To much of France, Kerviel becomes a folk hero, the provincial boy who beat the Parisian machine at its own game. Polls show real sympathy for the trader and precious little for the bank. At trial in 2010, his defense is simple: the bank knew, not the details, the smell, the 75 alerts, the €1 billion letters from Frankfurt, the profits it happily booked. You do not quietly make €1.4 billion on a desk built for tiny arbitrage margins. And month after month, nobody asked how. The court convicts him: breach of trust, forgery, unauthorized use of computers, 3 years in prison, and damages of exactly €4.9 billion, a number no salary on earth could ever repay. The point wasn't payment. The point was the story: one man did this. He serves less than 5 months behind bars. France's highest court lets the conviction stand, but throws out the damages. And in 2016, an appeals court in Versailles reruns the arithmetic and reaches a very different verdict. The bank's own, quote, deficiencies, the court finds, share the blame for its own loss. Kerviel's bill, €1 million, from €4.9 billion to €1 million. One more number, because the loss was now partly the bank's own fault. The French state moved to claw back the €2.2 billion tax break Société Générale had taken on the disaster. The cheapest thing about this collapse was the man who caused it. The tally then, 4.9 billion euros gone in 3 days, 5.5 billion raised in emergency capital, a 4 million euro fine for 75 ignored alarms. Chairman Boughton gone within 15 months. The bank survived, it is still there today. And Jérôme Kerviel, a free man, still insisting the bank knew, liable in the end for roughly 1/5,000th of the damage. The last line in this file is the one the bank still doesn't like to read. The controls didn't fail because they were weak. They failed because they were known. For 5 years, Société Générale trained Jérôme Kerviel to be a control. Then it sat him at a trading desk and pointed the controls at him. 75 alarms rang. The man they were built to catch knew everyone by name. File 13 closed.